In 1960, a psychologist walked into a room with a volunteer and said, "I need you to do one thing. Press this button when I tell you to." On the other side of the wall, someone was strapped to a chair. Every time the person in the chair got an answer wrong, the volunteer was told to press the button. The button delivered an electric shock, starting at 15 volts, going all the way up to 450. At 300 volts, the person in the chair stopped answering entirely. The volunteer could hear them through the wall. And yet, 65% of participants pressed the button all the way to the maximum. Not 65% of criminals. Not 65% of people with something wrong with them. 65% of ordinary people just like you. The man running the experiment was Stanley Milgram, Yale University, 1961. He had designed the study 1 year after the trial of Adolf Eichmann, the Nazi officer who organized the transportation of millions to death camps. Eichmann's defense was not that he believed in what he was doing. His defense was, "I was following orders." Milgram wanted to know, was Eichmann a monster? Or was he just a man? The answer terrified him. But let's back up, because to understand what Milgram found, you have to understand something about how your brain is actually built. You think of yourself as one person making decisions. One continuous you, sitting behind your eyes, choosing what to do. But neuroscience tells a different story. Your brain is not a single decision maker. It's a committee. And one of the most powerful members of that committee is not reason. It's not logic. It's something older. It's the part of your brain that monitors your social position every second of every day. For 300,000 years, being expelled from your group meant death. No shelter, no food, no protection. Your brain learned one rule above all others: do not be cast out. And the fastest way to not be cast out? Do what the authority figure tells you. This is not weakness. This is not stupidity. This is engineering. You were built by evolution over millions of years to defer to authority in high-pressure situations. Milgram called it the agentic state. The moment your brain switches modes, instead of asking, "Is this right?" your brain starts asking, "Am I doing this correctly?" The question shifts from ethics to execution. And here's what makes this terrifying. The agentic state doesn't feel like surrender. It feels like responsibility. The volunteers in Milgram's study were not enjoying it. Many were visibly distressed, sweating, trembling, begging to stop. But when the experimenter said, "Please continue," most of them continued. 4 simple words. And that was enough. Now, you might be thinking, that was 1961. People were more obedient then. We know better now. In 2009, psychologist Jerry Berger at Santa Clara University repeated the experiment. He stopped it at 150 volts for ethical reasons. But up to that point, 70% complied, higher than Milgram's original results. This wasn't a relic of a more obedient age. If anything, we got worse. But Milgram didn't just run one experiment. He ran 23 variations. And what he found in those variations is where it gets really interesting. When the authority figure left the room and gave instructions by phone, obedience dropped to 20%. When the victim was in the same room, close enough to touch, obedience dropped to 40%. When 2 authority figures disagreed with each other in front of the participant, obedience collapsed entirely. Almost nobody continued, and when the participant could see another person refuse to comply, obedience dropped to just 10%. One person, one refusal, and the whole system started to fall apart. This is the part Milgram's experiment is rarely taught. It's not just about how easy it is to make people obey, it's about what breaks it. Distance breaks it. Proximity to the victim breaks it. Visible dissent breaks it. Your brain's obedience system is powerful, but it has off switches, and they're surprisingly simple. But before we get there, we need to talk about something Milgram never fully explained. Why does the system exist at all? Not just in humans, in almost every social animal on the planet. Wolves defer to the alpha. Crows have dominance hierarchies. Even fish school around the most confident swimmer. Hierarchy is not a human invention. It's a survival technology. When a predator attacks, there's no time to vote. Someone leads. Everyone follows. The group survives. Your nervous system learned to read authority signals, the way your eyes learn to read light, automatically, below the level of conscious thought. A lab coat, a title, a confident posture. These are not logical arguments. They're signals. And your brain responds to signals before it responds to facts. Milgram understood this, so he tested it. In one variation, the authority figure wore casual clothes instead of a lab coat. Obedience dropped by 20%, just from removing the coat. Milgram saw all of this. He spent the rest of his career trying to understand not just how obedience worked, but how societies built systems that depended on it. He called it the Cyranoid experiment. He tested how much a person's authority changed based purely on who was speaking through them. He found that people trusted the same words more when they came from someone who looked authoritative. The content didn't change. The container changed, and that was enough. We don't respond to ideas. We respond to the package they arrive in. This is why advertising works, why uniforms work, why titles on business cards work, why the design of a pill affects how well it works, even when the chemistry is identical. The placebo effect is not a trick. It is the obedience system, applied to your own body. Your body obeys the expectation set by authority, just like those volunteers obeyed the man in the lab coat. Now, let's go back to the room. 1961, Yale University. The participant is sweating. The dial is at 375 volts. They turn to the experimenter and ask, "Will this cause permanent damage?" The experimenter says 4 words. The experiment requires this. That's it. No threat, no force, no punishment. Just, the experiment requires this. And the participant turns back to the button. Milgram watched this happen hundreds of times, and he said, "I found the most dangerous thing in the world. It's not cruelty, it's not hate, it's not even ideology. It's a person who has decided that someone else is responsible for what they do, not a monster. Just a person who handed the steering wheel to someone else." And here is Milgram's final question, the one he never fully answered before he died in 1984. How do you build a society where people keep their hands on the wheel? He found 3 things that helped, not philosophies, not moral training, practical, structural things. 1. Proximity to the consequence. The closer you are to the effect of your action, the harder it is to keep going. This is why soldiers are psychologically more damaged by close-range combat than by drone strikes. Distance is not just physical, it's moral. 2. Visible dissent. One person naming what is happening, out loud, in the room. 3. Divided authority. When the command doesn't come from one clear source, the agentic state doesn't fully engage. Checks and balances. Free press. Separation of powers. These are not just political ideas. They are obedience circuit breakers. Milgram understood that institutions are the hardware and people are the software. And corrupted hardware runs corrupted software, no matter how good the people are. You cannot fix a Milgram experiment by finding better volunteers. You have to change the room. So, where does that leave you? You will walk into rooms today where someone in authority says something that doesn't feel right. Your body will do what it was built to do. It will start to defer. It will start to go along. And you won't feel like you're betraying yourself. You'll feel like you're just being practical, just getting along, just doing what the situation requires. That feeling, that sense of smooth inevitability, is the agentic state. That is the circuit running. Milgram's gift to you, if you choose to accept it, is knowing the circuit exists, because a circuit you can see is a circuit you can interrupt. You don't have to become a rebel. You don't have to become a contrarian. You don't have to distrust everything. You just have to remember one thing. In the moments that matter, ask, whose responsibility is this right now, in this room? According to me, not according to the lab coat, not according to the title, not according to the situation, according to you. Milgram spent his life asking how ordinary people do extraordinary harm. But the same experiment, read from the other direction, tells you something else entirely. It tells you that one person, in one room, choosing to name what they see, can change what everyone around them does. You are not built broken. You were built for a world that no longer exists. The obedience circuit was never your enemy. It kept your ancestors alive. It built every civilization that ever existed. But it runs on autopilot. An autopilot was designed for a world where the authority figures actually knew the way. The experiment is still running. The room hasn't changed. The button is still there. The only question Milgram never got to answer is whether you'll press it. He left that one up to you. This is the system Milgram cracked open. But here is what nobody tells you about it. The same system that made 65% of people press a button that could kill someone is running inside you right now. Every time you don't speak up in a meeting because the boss is in the room. Every time you follow a rule you know is wrong because someone official told you to. Every time you go along with something in a group because everyone else is going along with it. That's not weakness. That's the same circuit that kept your ancestors alive for hundreds of thousands of years, firing exactly as designed. The problem is, the world changed, and the circuit didn't update. Your ancestors' authority figures earned their position. The fastest runner, the best hunter, the elder who knew where the water was. The authority they deferred to had proven itself. It had skin in the game. But today's authority figures are different. A man in a suit telling you what to buy. An algorithm deciding what you see. An institution issuing a policy. They have no skin in the game. They don't eat what you eat. They don't live where you live. They won't feel what you feel. But your nervous system can't tell the difference. It sees the lab coat. It sees the title. And it starts to defer. This is the gap Milgram found. Not between good people and bad people. Between the ancient brain and the modern world. And now we come to the part of this story that changes how you move through the world. Because Milgram's real discovery wasn't that people obey. It's that obedience is a dial, not a switch. And you have more control over that dial than you've ever been told. Milgram found that the single most powerful intervention was simply seeing someone else refuse. One person naming what's happening out loud breaks the agentic state for everyone around them. Because the agentic state depends on silence, on everyone assuming everyone else is fine with it. The moment someone speaks, the illusion that everyone is fine with it collapses, and suddenly, everyone realizes they were all waiting for someone else to go first. This has a name. It's called pluralistic ignorance, and it is everywhere. In a classroom where nobody understands, but nobody raises their hand, because everyone assumes everyone else understands. In a meeting where everyone thinks the plan is bad, but nobody says so, because everyone assumes everyone else thinks it's fine. In a society where most people privately disagree with a norm, but publicly perform agreement, because they believe they're the only ones who disagree.